Welcome back to the Holistic Skin Detective, the podcast where we explore what your skin is really trying to tell you. Today's episode is a little different, and it's the first of a two-part conversation with a very special guest who brings a powerful lens to the deeper drivers behind our choices, especially when it comes to food. I'm joined by Sophia Lightfoot, a weight loss coach and hypnotherapist who helps people shift their patterns around food, not by adding more restriction, but by working with the mind, the subconscious, the emotions, and the beliefs we often don't realize that are running the show. In my own clinical work with skin, food is one of the key pillars that we look at, not from a place of shame, but from a place of curiosity. We often know what we should be eating, and yet we still reach for those comfort foods, or find ourselves repeating patterns that don't feel aligned with how we want to live. This is where Sophia's work gets fascinating. In part one, she shares how her own story led her to become a weight loss hypnotist and why mindset, not willpower, is often the missing piece when it comes to food and body care. Before we start, if you're looking for support with your acne or breakouts, I invite you to check out the KDC framework over on my website. It starts with a free quiz that helps you identify your unique acne pattern. And no, this isn't a gimmick. It's a tool built from 2 decades of real-world clinical experience, designed to help you get clarity on what's driving your skin issues beneath the surface. Because the truth is, your body is always trying to communicate through your skin. KDC helps you to understand the cause, the why, and the how, so you can finally build a game plan that makes sense for your body. You can take the quiz now over on my website, the link is in the show notes, and start connecting the dots. Now let's dive in. Welcome to the Holistic Skin Detective. My name is Christina and I am a holistic skin health practitioner with 20 years experience in helping people find natural solutions to their skin woes. And I'm the creator of the KDC Skin Typing Framework. If you're here, you're probably curious about how to tackle hormonal acne from a truly holistic angle. In each episode, we'll explore the deeper connections between your skin, your hormones, and your environment because healthy skin is so much more than just the surface. So before we dive into today's topic, if you haven't yet discovered your own KDC skin type, you can find a link in the show notes to learn more. And remember, while we explore holistic approaches here, it's always a good idea to have your skin first checked by a qualified medical professional. Now let's get into the heart of today's episode. Well, thank you, Sophia, for coming along and talking to me today. I just wondered if you wanted to start off just explaining a little bit about your work and what you do now before we kind of go into your background and how you got to where you are now.
Beautiful. Thank you, Tina. Well, I call myself an unconventional weight loss coach because the very first thing I suggest to my clients is I ask them to throw away their scales. Now, most of them don't. My clients seem to like to hide them in the back of the shed where they can access them a little later. But what I do is I work primarily with women because I'm a woman, and so I have a better understanding coming from my own experience. I work with women to help them heal their relationship with food and their body and themselves. A really pleasant side effect of that is that they will also lose weight if that's something they want to do.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And what do you do in your practice to assist women?
So in my practice, I'm a licensed rapid transformational therapy practitioner. That is one of my power tools, but that's not my only tool. It's like a power drill, but you can't build a whole house just with a drill. So you need the whole tool kit.
Absolutely.
RTT was it was a game changer for me. So I'd struggled with overeating, undereating, binge eating, an undiagnosed binge eating disorder for over 35 years. And it was RTT that really helped me to shift that in a very permanent way. But during that time, I had also been struggling with depression. I was diagnosed with clinical depression and anxiety. And I learned a lot of other skills along the way. And so how I work with clients is I usually work for around 12 to 18 months and longer. I use RTT as one of the key tools, particularly initially, to create some really big paradigm shifts and really set clients up to recode all the conditioning that we pick up in our early childhood. And then I use a variety of tools, coaching and mentoring along the way, to support my clients to create the changes that they want in their life, in their eating habits, their relationship with their body, and fundamentally and most importantly, their relationship with themselves, so that they can create a truly loving relationship with themselves. And because of that, they're then able to really thrive in every area of their life. So it's really fun. I love it. I love celebrating with my clients all their big and small successes. It's the best part.
Sounds like a beautiful, very whole experience, which is why I wanted to talk to you, because there's this relationship with food that I think tells us so much about ourselves and our upbringings and where we come from, and so much more. I was hoping that you would tell us more about that, and from your experiences, what is the most common limitation that we experience. But before we get there, I'd love for you to tell us the story that you told me about your childhood journey and your relationship with food and your cultural background, and how it all kind of ended up blending in together.
Yeah, so I'm first generation Australian, and I was born in 1969 in Adelaide, and to a Ukrainian family. So the good part about that was we grew our own organic vegetables and had our own chooks, which my grandma would slaughter in our inner city suburban backyard. And we were surrounded by a lot of other immigrant families, Italians, Greeks. I know the Greek family down the road had a sheep at one stage, which followed me home, which I was very excited about. But quite early on, I began overeating, and I was always plump. My mum would say to me, "Oh, you're not plump, you're not fat, you've just got big bones." Didn't really help me feel any better. And I was born prematurely and nearly died. And so throughout my childhood, there was this concern in my family that I needed to eat and have that extra bit of weight just in case I got really sick again. So my parents and my grandparents had my grandparents had lived through World War II, and my parents were born in post-World War II Germany, and they literally saw people starve. And something I recall one of my grandmas saying to me was, always make sure you've got a little extra weight on you, because the thin kids die first. If they get sick, they don't have that extra weight. So it was very much seen as a good thing to be carrying extra weight. So that started really early on. And through that, I very quickly disconnected from my natural appetite, because as babies, we're born knowing when we're hungry, knowing when we're not. And for most people, particularly the clients I work with, we've been forced to finish what's on our plate. You're not leaving the table till you've finished your meal. I have one client who told me, she would literally fall asleep at the table to be allowed to leave, because she wasn't allowed to leave the table till she'd finished her meal. So, but I also have witnessed it. I worked as a school teacher for 10 years. I'd hear teachers saying, like, you have to eat another bite of your sandwich, or you have to finish what's in your lunchbox before you're allowed to play. So as children, we really disconnect with our natural appetite. And we'll, often see really well-meaning parents, even with toddlers, here comes the food, we're playing a plane. And as babies too, I was a breastfeeding counsellor. I'd hear a lot of parents being told by their child health nurses, your baby needs to be weighing more. They're not keeping up. So very early on, we're taught to disconnect with our appetite, disconnect with our body. And at the same time, when we overeat, we're praised. Good girl, good boy, you're going to grow up big and strong. Yeah. So that was definitely part of my journey in early childhood. By the time I reached high school. I'd already begun dieting. Back then we didn't have social media, which is an even, bigger problem today amongst young people. But I'd read the Women's Weekly, the Women's Day, the New Idea. Almost everyone's mums bought those magazines, even the TV Guide, and you'd see these slim actresses, and there was often criticism that, this actress has gained weight, this actress has lost weight. Yep. So that those messages that in order to be successful and considered attractive in our society, you've got to be slim. And if you're not, if you're big boned or plump or, a larger version than those beautiful slim actresses that was seen as beauty, you start feeling less than. So, and I loved dance. So through primary school, I took up ballet. By the time I got to high school, I was doing 4 classes a week, after school Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday mornings. Now I got to puberty and I began developing a lot faster than the other girls in my class. So it was a bit of a shock. I was tall early and I just sort of stopped growing around the age of 12 as far as height goes. But at the age of 10, I'd already got my first period. My breasts had started developing. When I'd raised my arm in class, there was black hair sprouting out. In my leotard around the bikini line, again, black hair sprouting out. And being taller than the other girls, and naturally in puberty, girls tend to carry a little extra weight as we grow from a child's body into a woman's body.
True, there's that hormonal shift.
I began to feel hideously ugly and like an elephant, and all the other girls in my dance class were still flat-chested, just predominantly shorter than me, really slim. And it was about that time my parents had also had more children, and they said, look, do you want to become a classical ballerina? If not, let's drop the dance classes and focus on your studies. And I knew I didn't want to become a classical ballerina, and I felt very self-conscious, but I loved to dance. And not realising at the time that maybe there were other options, I chose to quit dance. And as a result of that, I fell into a very depressive state and began overeating, binge eating, began bulimic type of behaviours where I would binge eat and try to force myself to vomit. I wasn't very good at the forcing myself to vomit bit, so that didn't continue for that long. But I did find that I could use laxatives to sort of purge out the other end. And that continued on and off throughout my life. The difficulty being is if I didn't judge the dose very well, I could have very unpleasant accidents. So it's a really horrible way to be, but I felt very uncontrolled around food. The pattern that developed that suited me best was overeating, undereating, or, what I call yo-yo dieting. I'd be good, I'd undereat, and then I'd flip and I'd binge eat, or I'd undereat for half the day and then sort of mid-afternoon, then I'd be uncontrollably eating till I really would feel completely full and couldn't possibly eat anymore, and wake up the next morning really filled with a lot of self-hatred and feeling very embarrassed, feeling very ashamed of myself, and really going like, well, what is wrong with me? Why can't I eat like a normal person? Now, at the same time, in early childhood, a lot of urinary tract infections and ear infections, so I was on antibiotics a lot. And then during my high school years, I had really a lot of acne. So my face I remember it was just sore to the touch and just full of pimples and whiteheads, blackheads, redheads. And I was put on long-term low-dose antibiotics. And now, and I don't have a real intimate knowledge, but just with a very basic knowledge about microbiome, gut flora, knowing that I'd been on antibiotics all that time, what that must have done to my gut. And I also had candida infections, or yeast overgrowth. That I experienced that a lot, thrush a lot. yeah, and that would have also affected my mental health and well-being. So it was a lot going on. And coming in from a Polish household, there was lots of refined wheat flour and refined white sugar. And in fact, the kitchen bench, when I arrived home from school every day, it was full of bread rolls, biscuits, sweets, cakes, yeast cakes. It was just a whole bench. And I'd come home, and the first thing Mum or my grandma, who lived with us as well, would say is, have something to eat and eat up because it's going to go off. So it was there. And, I just developed these really bad habits. Plus, there was a lot of things I was feeling that I didn't know how to communicate. So my parents and my grandparents were still, dealing with a lot of their own trauma, dealing just with adult life. And there was a lot going on in my teen years. 3 of my grandparents died during that time. My younger siblings all came into the world during that time as well. And there was, just a lot going on for my parents, so that it was hard for them to actually be tuned into my needs as well. And I developed some really unhelpful mental thought patterns. I also experienced at school, I wouldn't call it bullying so much, but there were often comments made about my thunder thighs, my ski jump nose. A boy that I had a real crush on said he would never go out with me because I looked like a fat cow and had a face like a cracked brick. And to be honest, my face really did look like a cracked brick. My acne was quite severe. So my self-esteem really took a beating. And I was so angry with myself that I hadn't continued dancing. I'd realised quite early that was a mistake to quit. But at the time, I just didn't know how to speak. I didn't know how to communicate my needs and go like, hey, I need to dance for my well-being and my mental health. I really needed that dopamine hit. And on top of that, my parents were very strict. So I couldn't join in all the social activities that my friends did. And that, again, I felt very different from everyone. And really my mental health really spiraled down during that period. But I began working with some very good counsellors, some terrible ones. And really, I really strongly invite and encourage people to seek help. But if it's not the right one, keep looking. The skills that I learned through that part of the work that I share with my clients today.
So it's so layered, isn't it? I mean, I just love that story because you've shared with me earlier, because there's just so much to our resistance to changing our food habits. We'll be doing more and more through this podcast awareness on food intolerances, and there's just this mind block that we all have, that we know we shouldn't be eating certain foods, but we just can't stop. My example is coffee. It's not the caffeine. For me, I think it's a nice, warm, milky drink in the morning. There's something comforting about that. And I know that's what you do, isn't it? You kind of drill down into what that connection is and then start to unravel these memories, whether they be a social, something the boy said, or something our parents just did out of love, cooking us all this beautiful food, which we connect food with love. But it's not necessarily that good for us. And we've learned so much more now, and we're always learning. Talk to me a little bit about how you work with people to kind of unearth those treasures and just to unravel it in order for them to be able to move forward.
So I call it unlocking the secret codes of overeating. And it's a process I developed based on Marissa Peer's work. And through working with my clients, I've really refined it with their feedback and their input. I've identified 6 secret codes of overeating. When I first did the questionnaire that Marissa has in her book, I think it's I can't remember now, but there's a book Marissa has around overeating. So she has a program called Perfect Weight Forever, and I think it's called You Can Be Thin, something like that.
We can pop it, link to it down below later. Yeah.
And so my question will be in my book that's coming out next year, which is based on Marissa's, but I found I tick nearly every box in every category, and which is great because now no matter what my clients are experiencing, I've got a reference point. I've experienced something very similar too, and I've turned it around, which is the best thing because I know, well, if I can do it using the tools that I've got, they can do it too. So would you like me to just very briefly go through the different codes?
Absolutely, if you're happy to share that, and we'll definitely speak more about your book a little bit later as well. Because I think that would help, for people that are listening now. This will be launched in early January after we've just gone through this period of celebration, which comes around food, and it's a tradition. So this will be kind of quite nice just to start thinking about, what foods should I be giving up this year? Because we always have these good intentions and set our New Year's resolutions, right?
So perhaps if I step back a little bit. So if we're wanting to change our habits, because I want to share this in a way that your listeners can actually take this information and implement it and get results immediately.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
So the very first thing is decide what you want. And the trick about that is, as children, there were things we wanted that we just couldn't have. And particularly for women, we've got these memories of maybe it was a Barbie doll house, maybe it was a pony, maybe it was a motorbike. And we begged and begged and begged our parents, can we please have this? Can we please, please, please? And they either said flat out no, or they considered it and they said we would, but then for whatever reason, often it was financial, but sometimes their values were actually different to ours, really important to us. They brushed it off and went, well, no, you don't need that. And so when that happens at a young age, part of us will go, I never want to feel that pain again. For me, one of the things I remember, and it actually came up, I'd forgotten it consciously, but it came up in a hypnosis regression. I wanted a pony. I just wanted a pony with all my heart. I was about 4 years old, and my parents entertained the idea. They started researching, talking to friends. Interestingly, my Polish name is Zosia, and my grandmother had a horse called Zosia. But I mean, she was a farmer in rural Poland, and apparently this horse was very stubborn, which I thought was very funny because I was also very stubborn. But my parents, I remember them saying, like, maybe we can get you a Shetland pony. But my parents had not been brought up around horses, so they were clueless. They just hadn't been. My parents, had grown up in poverty, and the thought of having a horse or anything was just never a consideration. So around about that time, my dad, who was studying medicine, got his internship at the Children's Hospital in Adelaide, and he was in the emergency department, and he saw little girls around my age and older coming in after horse riding accidents and spending, in his words, they're spending the rest of their lives in a wheelchair or worse. They're either quadriplegic or paraplegic. And he just went, you are never getting a horse. In fact, I'll forbid you from riding one, And even as a little kid, I understood that, but I was heartbroken. And when we have those experiences, we, as a little child, our mind is naturally in a hypnotic state. It's in a slow brainwave because we're absorbing information. We need to take in as much information as possible in our early years for our survival. So we make meaning out of everything. And those kinds of experiences, we can create whatever meaning we create, but we're creating those meanings with a very young mind. So what I make that mean is what I really, truly want is not available to me, and I'm powerless to do anything about it. It really hurt. And at the same time, my parents just weren't tuned into my emotional needs to help me move through that grieving process, like most parents, oh, well, you can't get a horse, get over it, basically. You've got so many other good things in your life, like, you should be grateful. And so when we don't have someone to guide us through the grieving process of not getting the thing we want and that disappointment, part of us goes, that's it, I never want to feel this hurt again. I never want to feel this way again. And it actually stops us, unconsciously stops us as adults from really asking for what we want. I remember my mantra through my 20s, 30s, into my 40s was just make do with what you've got. Bloom where you are planted. And I remember seeing a meme, you know, you don't have to bloom where you're planted. You're not a tree. You can move. So, you know, throughout years of a really dysfunctional and rather unhappy marriage, I kept saying to myself, you just got to make the best of it and bloom where you are planted. You know, when I finally had the support with working with psychologists to actually leave my marriage, oh my goodness, the relief for both of us, you know, we could finally move on. So we pick up these ideas and it actually prevents us from asking for what we really want. So the first thing that I really support my clients to do is start writing, like journal or have a conversation with someone, even just by yourself. Some people prefer to speak it out loud. Some people enjoy writing. Either or, whatever works for you. What do you, hand on heart, what does your heart desire? Not what should you want, not what we've been told we should want about our body, our health. You might love being curvy and voluptuous, and that's okay, but what does your heart desire? And I encourage people to write 2 pages straight, uncensored. Just write, completely uncensored. And when you've completely run out of stuff to write, ask, and what else? And then repeat that process. And what else, whether you're writing or speaking. And then once you notice that you are starting to repeat the same things over and over, you know you've got to the bottom. But interestingly, once we pass that resistance and that criticism of, no, you can't possibly ask for that. Who do you think you are asking for that in your life? Then it all starts to come out and we can be quite surprised, like, oh, this is actually what I want. Oh, I haven't ever had the guts to ask for that before. But that is what I actually want. So that's the very first thing, getting clear, what do we want? And I want this because.
So it's allowing this energy to basically allowing ourselves to express what it is that we want, that kind of really moves the repression away that we kind of tend to use food to comfort. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. We also, because we've learned to really cut ourselves off from our wants often. It could be our early religious instruction, our education, our cultural messages. When we give ourselves permission to truly ask for what we honestly want, that's the first step. When we know what we want and why, and then we say, right, I'm committing 100%. I'm deciding this is what I want. Mm. And it's okay for me to have it. We give ourselves permission to have it. We know we've 100% committed. And until we're 100% committed, it doesn't matter what tool I teach you, you will always find a way out. You'll find an excuse. We may think we're 100% committed, but once we are, there's no stopping us. We become unstoppable.
So how does that relate to our weight and our foods? This need to have sweet stuff when we know that it's not good for us, but we're still going to have it.
Because what do you truly want? Do you really want to be healthy? Do you know, and why do you want to be healthy?
Right at that moment, I don't care. I just want that.
And I remember I'd be overeating and part of me would be saying, like, what on earth are you doing? Why are you overeating? I don't care. I just don't care. And that voice would come, I don't care.
Yeah.
And I trained myself to go like, well, actually, I do care and I want you to stop. I do care. I do care. But when I got really clear on it, and this is what my clients do, why do we want to be healthy? You know, and for many of us, especially if we have children, it's because we want to be a good role model for our kids. Mm. And we want to be around when our kids are older and possibly having grandkids and great-grandkids. And really tapping in, well, why do you want to be healthy? Because unless you're really clear on the reason why, just go like, well, this is the easy way out. I just want to feel better. So that is the very best step to set us up for success. Get really clear on what we want and why.
Yeah.
Like, I want to look good in swimmers because I want to feel really comfortable when I'm at the beach. And one of my big reasons why is because I want to show other older women that we can still rock on no matter what our age is. We don't have to be, self-conscious about our bodies. And I've never felt confident in swimmers in my entire life. So I'm 52 now. So it's really important to me. And I don't have to justify it to anyone else. It's important to me. It's what I want, and I'm allowed to have what I want. So it's giving ourselves permission to actually have what we want. The reason we really want anything is it's for enjoyment.
And in defining what we want, we're then finding our why we want to do it.
Yeah. And, there's like, I think it's Les Brown, when our why is big enough, the how will find itself. We get stuck on the how. How will this happen? How do I do it? Forget the how. Just really get clear on what you want and why. That's the first step. And then 100% committed. When you're 100% committed, have you ever been in a job or a relationship where you had to leave? And for a while, you were kind of weighing up the pros and cons. Do I stay? Do I go? Or it could even be a location. And you're like, I'm not sure if this location's suiting me anymore. Do I stay? Do I go? And then you make the decision. That's it. I'm out of here. And you feel it's like a weight just shifts off your shoulders. You've made it. Now, you're physically still there, but you've made a decision. So when you've made the decision, if you want to be healthy, when you make that decision, it's like, that's it. It's a done deal. No matter what, I'm choosing health. For me, for years, I said, I want to be slim. I just want to be slim and stay slim. But you know what? I still hadn't made that decision. Now, there's a big reason for that. We associate it with pain. And so now I'm going to go into the codes of overeating. Yeah. But the very first thing is to get clear on what we want and why. And commit 100%. That's a 3-step process. Once we've got that, then we can start looking, because otherwise there's part of us is just going to resist, push it away. Doesn't matter what information I give you, you're not going to fully implement it. You're not going to take it on board, because part of you will be going like, it's too painful. So I teach my clients about the mind. One, our subconscious mind is hundreds of times more powerful than our conscious mind. I love Marissa Peer's analogy. She talks about the mind being like a Ferrari. Our subconscious mind is like a Ferrari. Our conscious mind is the driver. Now, most of us don't know how to drive a Ferrari. And so, we go all over the place. The subconscious mind is really powerful, but we need to learn how to drive it, how to direct it, so we can actually get to where we want to go in life. Understanding, though, that life is an endless journey, so we never actually get to the destination. We get to enjoy the journey.
If you've ever wondered what's really happening beneath the surface to create breakouts, I've built a tool that helps you find out. It's called the KDC framework, and it starts with a quick free quiz to identify your own unique acne pattern. From there, I guide you through deeper internal causes and help you map out a plan that supports your skin from the inside out. This isn't about surface fixes or trends. It's about learning how to read your body and your skin in a whole new way. Take the quiz. The link to the website is in the show notes, and get the clarity that you've been looking for. And don't forget, in part 2, we're continuing this conversation with Sophia Lightfoot to explore the emotional layers that shape how we eat, care for ourselves, and ultimately how our skin responds. I'll see you there.